Think about almost every piece of media that you've come across in your lifetime. Movies, books, TV shows, comics. All of these have one very important thing in common: the characters. There's always an extreme emphasis on the characters. After all, characters are the face of any piece of entertainment. They're what draw people in and what people will remember or first think of when someone mentions a piece of media, which is why, in my eyes, a character's design is equally as important as their story. Well, sometimes creating such an important part of any original story can be quite difficult. I personally have struggled with character design much more than I would like to admit, considering that I want to go into a career involving art, which is why I've decided to create this series for all of my fellow beginner artists. I'll be covering how to balance the character design, shape, language, and some miscellaneous tips. I'll also show you how to put these in action by redesigning some very old characters of mine that are definitely in need of an upgrade. Now, obviously you don't have to take my advice. I'm not a professional, but like I said, I wanted to help out other artists like me who maybe want to put their foot down and finally begin working on that comic or that story they've always wanted to create but don't know where to start. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. Get it? In my opinion, the most important part of any character design is knowing how to balance them out. On one end, we have complete practicality and simplicity, and on the other hand, we have extremely over-designed characters, which is usually known as rule of cool, since character designs like this are often made because the designers only focused on aesthetics instead of making a cohesive character. Too much of either can be a problem. Going too simple can lead to an extremely boring and forgettable character design. Think of all these teenage male anime protagonists with black hair, or the old gruff guy in an apocalyptic-esque game who owns a gun. These characters are nearly impossible to tell apart and are just plain boring, and they're very overdone. Now, going too complex is also an issue. If too much is going on, it just doesn't look pleasing to the eye. If you also want to use this character for something like a comic or 2D animation, you kind of just screwed yourself over, as you have to redraw this character hundreds, if not thousands of times. What I like to do to avoid either of these problems is by 1, deciding what to put them in based on their environment, and 2, where I want to go in their story. A cutesy magical girl story is going to have a vastly different design than, say, a futuristic dystopia or a medieval fantasy. Do they live in a hot or cold climate? Are they wealthy? All of these, combined with the aesthetic you want to go with, are things you need to consider. Now, it helps to fully flesh out a character's backstory, hobbies, or personality beforehand, as that will often affect their appearance. For example, if they have a lot of scars or injuries, they probably had a very hard past, or if they constantly look disheveled, they're probably very laid back, maybe a little depressed. But if you can't figure out every detail right away, that's fine. Just get to the basics, and along the way make tweaks to your design until you're happy with the result. Be sure to think about how many times you're willing to draw your design over and over again while tweaking it. Another essential part of character design is shape language. Shape language is using shapes in a character's design to tell the audience what kind of character they are. Triangles are sharp and can give a character edge, or it can signify cunning or danger. You can usually see triangles or sharp edges with the villains. Squares represent stability. Squares are often used to represent strong, reliable, or stubborn characters. Circles can give characters a sense of harmlessness. Circles are soft, harmless, and approachable. Now, there are times where you can break this rule. Using rounder, softer edges for a villain can be used to mislead the audience on how dangerous they really are. And triangles and sharp edges aren't always used for villains. Triangles can mean that a character is sharp intellectually. Not to mention, heroes can also be dangerous. Shape language is usually used in more cartoony stories, as they allow you to push and exaggerate characters that can't be done in real life. Many iconic Disney characters can literally be broken down into a couple shapes. While it's also used in stories where the characters may look a little more realistic, it's not to the same degree. But even then, I feel like this is something very important to know for storytelling purposes. Finally, these are all the tips I think are important, but I wasn't really able to fit anywhere else in the video. 1. Always try to push yourself and don't get attached to your first idea. Getting too attached to your first idea can actually stop you from thinking up even better ideas in the long run. Even if you end up liking your first idea best, it's always good to push your creativity, and you may even use your past designs for something else in the future. 2. Draw all your characters side by side in a lineup. Majority of the time, you'll want to create multiple characters for a specific universe. If you're doing this, it's really important that they look like a cohesive unit while also looking like different characters, and that they can actually exist in the world that you imagine. 3. References are key. Look at art or designs that you like and you want to imitate. Look at your favorite shows, comics, games, or movies, and look at what parts of the costuming or art that you want to emulate. I, personally, am chronically on Pinterest, but it really helps with my inspiration. Creating boards helps me visualize what aesthetics I want in my story, or clothing I want to incorporate into a character's design. But even if you aren't interested in character design, there's a lot of helpful things on there like pose references, writing advice, writing prompts, stuff like that. Also, turning on Spotify while scrolling is a great way to forget my problems. 4. Great character designs can be told apart just by their shadow. This is something a little more advanced and something that I'm still struggling with, but I think it's something that is still extremely important when making unique designs. This is also when shape language can come into use. Making sure your characters have recognizable shadows is a great way to differentiate them. And if you're really struggling with making them look different from each other, just start with a shadow first, and then build your way up to add more details.
Well, all this advice sounds great, and it seems like it's coming from a semi-reputable source, but how do you put this stuff into practice? Well, that's where the redesigning part comes in. First, let's see what we have to work with.
So, first off, these designs are just, like, incredibly boring, especially with, like, these huge blocks of just plain solid color with, like, nothing there. And I'm also not a big fan of these skin-tight spandex-y thing they've got going on. These are meant to be, like, heroes, and I just don't think that it's providing them the protection that they need. Her specifically, I wanted to make her weapons knives, and for some reason, like, my 4th grade brain decided to make them, like, literal kitchen knives. I don't know. With his mask, there's, like, this weird, like, flower thing over the eye, which makes it look really out of place considering there's no other flower motif, like, anywhere else on his outfit. These, logos are also just very uninspired. This one just looks like it was left blank. And I also don't really like this cape. Again, it's just this thing of, like, just this huge area of solid color with nothing underneath.
Yeah, not great, but that's okay. This is the redesigning portion for a reason. So, let's see what I come up with.
Okay, so this portion of the video is going to be a little different compared to the rest because I don't have, like, a set script. I just have notes on what to say. So if you're not interested in hearing me ramble about my character design process, I'll put, like, a timestamp up where you can just skip to see both of their designs. But yeah, so what I wanted to do is I changed, like, the aesthetic I wanted to go with their character design was almost like darkwear, techwear, warcore almost. Honestly, I can't tell the difference between the 3 of those. Someone's gonna get on me for that, but I don't care. And I also wanted to lean more into, like, protective gear, since both of their powers don't really involve, like, being, I don't know, like, tougher, like, physically, I guess. And I also wanted to do, like, more stuff about, like, hiding their identity. I really, really hate where, like, the designs where the only thing that they have to, like, slightly cover up their, like, identity is, like, just that stupid eye mask. Like in Miraculous Ladybug, like, anyone with half a brain would be able to tell, like, that's Marionette. Like, her best friend is, like, acting like that. Like, she wouldn't once stop to think, like, Marionette and that Ladybug here look really familiar. I wonder what that's about. Anyway, so that for this first one here, from what I remember about her original personality, she's actually like a little bit unhinged. So I wanted to use more sharp edges in her design. You can see here I literally put like triangle, and her breastplate is sharp. She literally has like a triangle in her hood. And I also wanted to make it just more interesting to look at in general, so I made her look very asymmetrical almost. I quite like asymmetrical character designs. And I just think it makes them look more human. If you want to make a character like purposely look more scary, I would recommend make them look unsettling. A good way to do that is actually making them perfectly symmetrical, because humans aren't perfectly symmetrical. I changed out her weapons, thank God, to like actual fighting knives. And you could see there on her glove where I referenced her original design. Oh yeah, I was originally going to give her more baggy pants, but in terms of like character design, it's nice to have like a juxtaposition between shapes, because her shirt, she's wearing a lot of layers, and like her shirt and stuff are very baggy, so it just looks better to have like smaller pants. Oh yeah, I cut out this part where I tried to add color. I think I'm actually gonna do color in a separate video, because honestly my color theory is very bad, and I don't think I'm in a place where I should be teaching anyone anything. So that's that. Anyway, we're nearing the end here, and I'm just adding some more details here in the end. And here's the final result. For the next one, I wanted to make him look like boxier almost. His personality was, I think he was like more on the gentler side and like quieter. Which, his power was super strength, so I don't know, I just thought I like the gentle giant thing. I don't know. So yeah, he just generally looks boxier, and like strong looking. Like actual like strong people, like not like bodybuilders. I'm not saying bodybuilders aren't strong, but there's more of a focus on cosmetics than like actual strength. And also there's just a ton of like ripped characters in superhero media that like honestly I just don't care to add more. And while I was designing him, it was actually a lot harder for me to do than the last one. In the speed paint, I actually sped it up a lot because I was fiddling around with it so much. I'm still happy with the final result, but it just took me a while to get there. But one of his prototypes was I wanted to make him look like almost more magical, like like those like super high collar like cape things, like almost like Doctor Strange-esque. Like you usually associate those with more magical things, and I thought it'd be like a fun juxtaposition to like do like a magical themed character, but his actual like power is like more of a physical thing. But he ended up looking too much like Phantom of the Opera, so I had to change that. Yeah, just remove the cape in general. I'm like Edna mode right now, but like I just don't like capes. At least not in this design. I don't think it works. I changed his mask up a little bit. I removed that stupid flower motif from the mask, and I also made it where like it cuts off at his mouth, so his mouth appears. I don't know, I just thought it looked interesting, especially compared to the other character where she's covering almost all of her face, and especially with this big hood, like you can't really see her at all. And in terms of personality, it makes sense because I imagine he's more of like an open person. Yeah. I also went like much more like military-esque, military inspired with his design. You can definitely tell by his like body plate in particular, but yeah. I don't really know what else to add. I Yeah, their belts match too. I just thought it'd be nice to have something that matches between them, as well as like their collar thing. I almost imagine that being like, well, first of all, neck protection, but also like voice changer almost. I also finally gave him a logo. The one on his military armor, I'm pretty sure is like a Celtic symbol. I kind of pulled it out of nowhere. If I had more time to work on these designs, I'm sure I could have come up with something, but I was under like a deadline. And I referenced his old logo on his belt as well. And I pulled up a picture of the last design to make sure that they like looked good together. And here's the result. And here are the two together in a lineup.
Much better, right? This is the end. I don't know how to end recording.